Your Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for your patience and those online while we work through the issue. I think we just had one question come through for the movers of the motion, which is Deputy Councillor Anna Casey-Cox and Councillor Sue on the inclusion of C.5, continuing the exploration of innovative programs, and just understanding what the purpose of that addition was.
So in the ecosystem report, it does, there's a number of recommendations from the sector for council to consider, and one of those is to invest into programs that provide social cohesion and connection. And I guess what I wanted to do was acknowledge that we do that, and we are continuously exploring along with our partners that potential and possibility. So it's just looking to pick up on, rather than not, one of the recommendations in the report.
So it is already work that we're doing, because some wanted to remove it. Are people comfortable with where it's at, or they're wanting to? Councillor O'Leary.
So, thanks, Chair. Look, I just have some questions on the staff recommendation and the motion. In the original motion from August, is anything in the staff recommendation or in the motion things that ComDev doesn't do now? I'd be asking the ComDev team that question.
I can respond to that. These are additional things. So yes, we connect community organisations with government departments, but sort of on a case-by-case basis. This is suggesting that we have a specific approach with them to advance that shared initiative identified in the report. So no, we're not actually doing that on a shared initiative for supporting the homelessness. We do not have an annual citywide social sector hui on homelessness. We had one this year, which was the result of a motion from last year, and there is some cost associated with that. Partner-led storytelling, we don't actively encourage that at all, but we know it's impactful, and as Erin explained earlier, what we're likely to be looking at is making sure that they can access community funding from our community grants to support that sort of work if they wish to take it up and need that help. Advocating to government on mental health provision and public housing provision, that is definitely possible within our submission and advocacy function. What this recommendation would do is give weight and prioritise these in a situation where our staff are already stretched to cover submissions that there is an appetite to submit on. So it would make sure that it had priority in that batting order. The last one of innovated. Actually, that is probably, maybe that's a prioritisation one as well. Out of all of them, I think that's the one that I could hand on heart say, actually, we do this in a really focused way. But to Councillor Thompson's point earlier, we are reprioritising work to make things happen all the time. So while this, we're not asking for additional resource to do that, we have reprioritised other outreach to make sure that we have the development staff available to advance these initiatives. And I think likewise with recommendation initiative 5 proposal, that would help us prioritise this work.
So thank you very much, General Manager. So what I'm hearing is that other than the last bullet point there, all of this work is new work and it gives your team a steer in terms of prioritisation. But then on the other hand, you're saying you don't need extra funding or resource? How is that possible?
Well, there'll be things that we pull back on supporting in the community space to
Which is-
support
yeah.
these things.
Okay.
But to be fair, that is a challenge we have every day as things arise. So
Yeah.
we're very supportive of that reprioritisation
So
to support that work.
Is there anything that is key then, because we have no real oversight of what you're reprioritising? What work programs or work streams are we not doing to do these that would be important to committee or council?
Yeah, thank you. Erin, would you be able to speak just about the work program with the team?
So really, thanks Erin, really clear on what we're not doing to
Yeah.
achieve these 4 things. Won't, yeah.
Thank you for your question, Councillor O'Leary. At the moment, we do have a very heavy work program. Some of our key priorities are around some of our strategy development. So, for example, the community and social development strategy. So all of those things, that absolutely we are doing those. There are other aspects. The one that would come to mind at the moment is we're doing quite a bit of work in the civic education area. However, we are mindful that we're working with some of our community partners in that space as well. So we might look to reprioritise, make sure we're hitting these ones before we kind of, move forward really firmly in those areas as well. So what's been put out, I don't see them as ones where something's going to kind of permanently knock off. It's just that I will direct staff to make sure we're hitting these aspects as they're required. The homelessness hui, for example, I took a lead in that one. Those kind of things, I'll make sure that I'm really across. It's a really important part of what we're doing as well. So I guess that those key things that we're working on, there'll be no change, but there'll be some things that we'll reprioritise, put these on top, but still do them at a later date potentially.
So you're saying then that there's nothing that the committee really needs to be concerned about. So in 6 months' time, if we say what happened to so-and-so piece of work, you're not going to come back to us and say, well, that got dropped off because of these priorities. You're saying there's nothing really key and important.
Yes, I'm confident in saying that what's been put up here, I don't see any showstoppers in terms of us being able to fulfil these alongside our other commitments. I'm mindful that we're really clear on what those real key priorities are.
Okay, thank you for that. Second question, the original motion was that staff would develop what a new Central City Safety Plan would look like and report back. And then it was noting in the original motion all of the things around Ministry of Social Development, multi-agency individual support, all of those things. So it was noting that stuff. So the report today isn't reflective of that decision by council. Where is that at?
Through the chair, if I may, I spoke with both yourself and the deputy mayor about whether there was that idea of having a standalone safety plan or whether it would be incorporated into the Central City transformation work, which is being led by the deputy mayor. And the outcome of that was that we had looked to put it into a component part of the work that the deputy mayor is leading, rather than having a standalone, because it should be an enabler, which is part of that whole transformation area.
Okay, just for future closing of loops, it would be good to have had that reflected here. I think that's all my questions for now. Thank you.
Thank you. I will just ask that we keep questions to the motion, because we've had a very large opportunity before the break to ask general questions. So if we can keep it to the mover of the motion and the staff recommendation, that would be appreciated. That worked. So we have a mover, Deputy Councillor Casey Cox and Councillor Maroney. I'll open it to debate.
Thank you. And just first to acknowledge the staff and the work they've done to bring this report to us, and to acknowledge the relationships that we have in the community, which were, you know, partly demonstrated in the public forum this morning, with people feeling comfortable to come in and talk to us about these important issues. This motion doesn't dramatically change the staff recommendation, in my opinion. It just looks to highlight some of the work we are already doing, because we do quite a bit of work, as Connor alluded to, in the funding we provide that enables social cohesion and connection. And we're always, as I understand, in that space, always looking for opportunities, because ultimately we want our community to be best supported. But I think one of the things that is very clear is, and Erin talked about it, as did Lisa actually, that our space is advocacy and advocating for, in particular, mental health service provision in the city. We all know that that's quite a considerable area of need, and also in public housing provision, because we have an increased homeless population according to anecdotal evidence. We don't have the firm numbers, but as Erin said, that's coming to us later in the year. So what we do know is that we have got increasing struggle out in the community, and costs just keep going up. So the work that we do in this space is about connection and advocacy and coordination, and I think that we've been quite clear about that, and that this motion is very clear about that. So I just, want to acknowledge all the work that goes on in these spaces in the social service sector, the people that are picking up people like Lisa and Te Whare Korowai, and the wonderful work they do. And thank you to the staff again.
Kia ora. Councillor Leo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do support the intent of this motion. Homelessness is a complex issue, and a better coordination between agencies and community organizations is clearly needed. At the same time, we need to be clear about council's role. Many of the underlying drivers, particularly mental health and housing, actually sit with central government. I want to emphasize, in the long term, one of the most effective ways to support people out of homeless is through pathway into employment along appropriate support services. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Chair. Homelessness is a terrible thing. And as we have heard and continue to hear, it's a complex challenge, and it sits across multiple systems. So I think that the challenge and opportunity for us here is to be very clear about the scope of council's role. I support the fact that council should have a role to play in this space, but we need to be very clear about what it is that we are doing, what it is that we should be doing, and where the boundaries of that sit. As part of that, I would hope and expect to see engagement with lived treaties, not just second-hand engagement, though I appreciate that there is value and reasons for that, but to engage directly in that space. I also echo the point that Councillor Liu made about being clear about not only our role but our resourcing, and making sure that the initiatives that we do support are linked to outcomes that we can track over time. That will ensure that whatever council contributes and does in the space is both focused and effective, and it's making a meaningful difference in a space where it matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Councillor O'Leary.
And thank you for those that have worked on the information in this report. I am of two minds. I am going to support it. I've been assured by staff that no extra funding at this point is needed. We are facing an LTP, and that's where that would be appropriate. I've also been assured that there is nothing that we will not be doing in reprioritising these things in the motion as being more important over other work. So I hope that that continues. I do support the previous speakers around what we need to be focusing on, and that is public space. However, we are also a good convener, and there is a small part in that we need to play. The Groundhog Day for me, though, which I find very frustrating, is that I've lived through all of this over a decade ago under former Mayor Julie Hardacre, and back then there were a lot of social agencies working in silos, and so she brought all of those decision makers and those social agencies together. And the Central City Safety Plan was developed, and out of that came the People's Project. And that was a nationally and internationally recognised organisation that tackled homelessness, and not for some of the rhetoric that I'm seeing coming back again around picking people up off the street or moving people on, but actually that everyone has a right to a home. And that became their principle and their foundation with huge success. Unfortunately, a mayor following Julie Hardacre cancelled that plan. And since then, I feel like while we have all of these wonderful agencies doing amazing work, that things have gone sort of their separate ways again. So my hope is actually with the Central City Safety Plan, because it worked last time for everyone involved, not just for public spaces and safety and antisocial behaviour. So I'm a little ho-hum on this at the moment, but I support the intention.
Councillor Sue.
Thank you. And just following on from the last speaker, I think having a really strategic approach to a Central City Safety Plan would be something I would support bringing back, because I was surprised to hear this morning that a lot of the services operating in that homelessness area weren't connected with each other. I was really quite surprised to hear that, and if we had a strategic planned approach to this, then that would not be happening. Obviously, I've seconded the motion. I've seconded the amendment to the motion to the staff recommendation as well, because I do think that we need to do more. Councillors will know that at our last council meeting, I proposed additional funding actually into this area of $228,000. I thought that was a better spend improving the issues that people have coming into the central city than the 2 hours free parking, and that was voted down, and I accept that. But I'm also hearing today the concerns about more that we're putting on our staff to prioritise in this area without the resourcing to go with it. And I know that that is a debate for the long-term plan, not for today. But I think that is something that we need to be really mindful of, because this is an issue for our entire community. This doesn't just belong to the people who are suffering the homelessness. They are suffering that because of systemic problems in our community, not because of their individual choices always. That is probably the minor part of this question. So I fully support the motion, but I do think that we need to do even more than what we are proposing to do. I believe that there are other councils. I know the Auckland Council, for example, does put considerable funding into specific initiatives to address homelessness. And I think that as a major city, we ought to be doing that in the future as well.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. Very briefly, just thank you to Erin and your team for your considerable work in this space to date. And I want to acknowledge our speakers that we had here today. I will be supporting the motion. I look forward to seeing how this work progresses in terms of the kind of impact that an enhanced facilitation role can have and coordination connection role can have. I also hold some concerns around resourcing and acknowledging that's a long-term plan discussion. I think we should think about whether there are opportunities for reprioritisation to ensure community development is supported in the way that needs to be, but also our community grants have been under increasing pressure because we increase them by CPI. We don't increase them to reflect the growing population and therefore the growing need within the city. And so the overall buying power of our community grants keeps getting eroded year by year, and we need to really consider, when you look at the quantum of our grants compared to our overall budget and the significant impact that they have, whether that's something that we need to have another look at, this long-term plan. Thank you.
Councillor Hoata.
Just real quick, I'm a part of this program. It's called RAW, Reclaiming Another Woman, which is an initiative that was established by Anna Street and is still led by her. And when I met with Anna the other day, she gets up early in the morning and goes and visits different women that are living rough on the streets. And on Harwood Street, behind I think it's Machina, the cafe there is a place where all the women that live on the streets stay because it's safe for them, and that's what I want to address today is our women that are living rough on the streets. And I did suggest something about thinking of, in our long-term plan, including a shower in our public libraries and a shower in our toilet just down here under Centre Place for our women that need to take care of their daily needs and their monthly needs. And they stay in the central city because it's like it's been mentioned before, it's not safe for them out in the suburbs. So that's something that we could take charge of in our public facilities and just really think about that and what that would mean for the women that are living rough. Kia ora.
Kia ora. I'll just quickly speak to it. Firstly, I want to thank the staff and the Comms Dev team, particularly Erin, for your efforts in this space and the report. I also want to acknowledge many groups that came to support this kaupapa in the public forum today. Thank you for the incredible work you do in our community and the passion you have for our people. The Insights report reinforces the conversations we've had many times around this chamber. Homelessness is complex and no single organisation or decision is going to resolve it on its own. But the Hui gave us a clear sense on where council can contribute within that wider system, that it is within our remit and includes strengthening coordination, facilitation, partnerships and advocacy to central government. As others have mentioned, it's important we're clear about our expectations. It's about supporting progress, not promising quick fixes. We need to be honest about the limits of council's mandate in this space while being committed to advocacy, facilitation and partnership where we can add value. Our role is not to replace central government or the social sector, but to help the system work better together to support better coordination and more coherent responses across agencies. So noting the motion today isn't requesting further resource and won't have an impact on other work, I will be supporting the motion today. Right of reply? Oh, sorry. Jumped in. Sorry. Councillor Rachel.
Thank you. I'd like to preface my comments with some background. So I've come from nearly a decade in the community leading a for-purpose organisation where we delivered social services supports and health, including housing-related support. We secured $5 million of government funding for housing product for Pacific peoples. We formed Pacific Housing Waikato. Spent 5 years on Habitat for Humanity's board and several years on the board of Te Whare Korowai. So I have huge empathy for this space and love for those that work in it. But it's also personal for me. It's personal for me because the Pacific community have the highest rate of hospital admissions related to housing deprivation, and we have the severest rates of housing deprivation. I cried when I read this report in frustration because there was very little in this report that was new, but it does highlight pervasive systemic issues which do need to be addressed and have needed to be addressed for a long time. And I need to be clear that my comments are not directed at the contents of the report, but actually the role of local government in addressing pervasive systemic issues. We do have a role, but the scope of that role needs greater definition or clarity. For example, processes for housing solutions, possibly rates for emissions, advocacy, absolutely. However, there are aspects of both the motion, the staff recommendation, and the amendment which are blurry for me and which I would not support in a broader LTP discussion. I was on the fence when I came into this meeting, but I have had an open mind and listened carefully to the public submissions, and in particular that of Harvey Brooks. And he at least provided some definition to what one of my key concerns were in relation to the original motion. I do support a coordinated approach to address systemic issues, and that a shared initiative with council involvement might help advance that. I will support the amendment with the caveat that I have firm views about delineation of responsibilities and concerns about an approach where council is inserting itself in a gap which others should be filling. But I'll reserve that for long-term plan deliberations. Thank you.
You, Mayor McIntyre.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Councillor Corrales, that was very well put. Like you, this is an issue dear to my heart, having previously served as chairperson of Te Whara Kurawai Tangata o Kirikiri Roa, and I'm still a board member. I've seen firsthand the challenges faced by our most vulnerable residents. I'm really grateful to our dedicated TWK team and 100% in support of their efforts, especially the continuing expansion of vital services, and it's been quite dramatic in recent times. You heard from Lisa today. She is a star, but she's one of many who work for TWK. It was also good to be reminded by today's speakers that our streeties and homeless folk are human beings with life stories, a myriad of experiences and needs, and many have experienced challenges and issues that most of us can't even imagine. They need our support, not our judgment. It's fortunate that our two local electorate MPs both have an interest in homelessness issues and solutions, because we do need to work with them. With my council hat on, and this is where I agree very strongly with Councillor Corrales, I want to be clear about our role, and other councillors have also spoken in this regard. Our responsibility is to enable and facilitate, not to step into the space held by central government and social services agencies. And I was struck by Harvey Brooks's answer to one of Councillor Corrales' questions, that government does people, councils do places. Hamiltonians rightly expect us to focus on delivering the responsibilities that lie specifically with local government and ensuring value for how we spend their rates money. It is their money we're spending. So I've had some unease, but like others, I've come to the conclusion that this is a motion that I can support. But I always remind us, council should focus on the areas where we genuinely add value, including strengthening partnerships, removing barriers, and advocating effectively, rather than risking duplicating work or creating parallel structures that are better led by the agencies responsible for frontline support.
Thank you, Mayor McIntyre. Cool, so we've got a mover and a seconder. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against?
Carried unanimously.
Thank you. We are running short on time, so I do ask members for their cooperation on keeping things brief and succinct. We move to item 8, the Lake Domain partial reclassification. I'd just like to start by reminding the committee and all our viewers of the purpose of this item. We're here to consider the reclassification of the Lake Domain Reserve. As you can see in the report, and was circulated to members and shown in the requested drop-in session, this is one of 7 decisions that have come to council since July 2021, up to as recently as a few weeks ago, when we unanimously supported the transfer of this land to EOI. So just some background there ahead of the presentation. Thank you, Saf.
Kia ora koutou. My name is Emily James. I'm a strategy and policy advisor for the Customer and Community Group. And with me today is Jonathan Brooke, the IAF Program Manager, who is managing the reservoir project. So today's report brings back the Lake Domain reclassification proposal following consultation and the February hearing, and responds to the additional information requested by elected members. Council received 22 submissions on the proposal, with 68% supporting the reclassification, including support from mana whenua through cultural impact assessments. Submitters who opposed the proposal raised matters relating to green space, cultural considerations, trees and community wellbeing. Those concerns have been carefully considered, and the report sets out how they have been addressed both in terms of statutory requirements and through project design, mitigation and ongoing management. The committee's role today is to consider the proposal in light of that consultation, the submissions received and the purpose of the Reserves Act. Based on that assessment, the feedback received and the proposal meeting the statutory requirements of the Reserves Act, staff recommend approval of the partial reclassification of Lake Domain. We are happy to take any questions.
Councillor Strange.
I noticed in the submissions there were at least two residents who spoke about the construction work and the likely, obviously, noise, vehicle movements. What else did they say? The vibration, house instability. Is there anything we can do to support them with that? And secondly, if there is damage to their homes due to particularly vibration, who would be liable for that?
So the district plan lays out permitted activities in terms of what those standards can achieve. The notice of requirement, the designation that has been granted for the project, requests a construction management plan, which shows how we're going to mitigate those effects with those neighbours. Yes, so we will be looking at how we can work with them, potentially doing condition assessments on their houses before we start, and then making sure that we meet those standards so that there will be no damage on their houses. Yep.
Thank you. And just supplementary to that, the construction management plan, excuse my ignorance, is that a plan that is effectively co-constructed with the residents, or is it a standard plan that the residents are told about, basically?
It will be a standard plan co-constructed with the contractor that we're going to appoint with the work, and then we will be using that, yeah. But it will be using the baselines that are permitted in the LTP, not the LTP, the district plan.
Okay, so just to be clear, so co-constructed with council and the contractor?
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor McDonald.
Thank you. If this is approved today, what happens next and what's that timeline?
We are looking to go out to construction tender by hopefully the end of this month, potentially early next month, and looking to award the construction contract roughly around August, and then construction starting later this year.
Thank you. And can you clarify whether any of the underlying assumptions that support the business case, particularly around growth and demand across the city, have been revisited in the last 12 months in light of current conditions, and what, if anything's, changed?
So my understanding is that there is a workshop tomorrow on the LTP kicking off, and as part of that there is the growth projections. So I understand that there is looking at the growth projections moving forward into the new LTP. For the IAF agreement, we agreed with the government for reasonable endeavours to enable 4,140 houses. That was back in 2022. I understand they got updated in May 2024 to roughly about 5,000 houses we assumed was going to manage, but that was the last update. So the next update is with the LTP.
Thank you. And how many houses do we have?
I believe it's around 300 and so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Councillor Niha.
But just want to understand the ramifications. If this doesn't go through today, is there a date for we lose funding? Is it is an immediate answer required today?
It would likely be today. There is milestones that we have agreed to the government to meet, and if we don't get this decision today, then we would not be able to meet those milestones moving forward.
What's the next milestone date?
The next milestone date is awarding that construction tender in October this year.
Thank you, Councillor Mead.
Councillor Chair Pike, has this not gone out to tender yet at all? And there's been no price indications done yet at all?
So we have developed engineer's estimate as part of the detailed designs. Yes.
And no one's priced it?
No one's priced it. The engineer has priced it.
O'Leary?
Thank you, thank you for the really in-depth deliberations report as part of this process. There are several questions I have just relating to some of the queries that I had, so I'm sort of working from page 58. One of the questions raised by an elected member was around the impact of tree removal, mitigation, etc. And there's a comment in there that says removal will be staged to limit effects on wildlife, native bats and visual change. My question would be, given the occupancy of bats, and I'm not a fan here of bats, in other areas that have literally stopped all work, how is it not indicated in the staff response that it could be a significant threat or disruption to construction, etc., or a significant threat to bats if they live there? It's just it's wrong.
So as part of the designation, we had ecology experts come out and assess. They did not find any bats in the area, but they found that some of the trees that we were removing, we needed to provide artificial bat roosts as mitigation. So we are assuming that, well, our experts are telling us that there will not be a stop to this project with regards to bats.
Because they haven't found any.
Because they haven't.
That's really good because I live close. My next question is around, and I think I might have raised this, I'm not sure, around peer reviews. So page 62, it says that independent external technical peer reviews were undertaken, and separate peer reviews for noise, vibration, I guess, in the engineering as well as construction phase. We haven't obviously seen those peer reviews. Was there anything in any of those peer reviews that this council isn't aware of and should be, or should be concerned about?
No. The peer reviews were acceptable, and they granted the notice of requirement with the designation conditions attached to them.
Okay, so they didn't raise any concerns. Okay, my possibly last one is on construction impacts, and several elected members raised this. So thank you for putting this in. So I'm on page 64, and there's the typical, what we would expect to be the typical response in terms of the impact of construction on residents in the area. It says access to surrounding properties will be maintained at all times, residents will receive early and ongoing communication, etc. Given the significance of this project, and granted it's still a few years away, how can we be confident that in terms of a customer service facing engagement that we will go above and beyond, because this is a significant project in a high residential area?
We are definitely looking at ongoing communication and above and beyond. As mentioned, we have gone out to the community 3 times with this project, and we are continuing to look at regular engagement and ongoing engagement.
So can it, will there be, I've asked this in the past for projects and it hasn't quite eventuated in terms of a one-stop shop for residents, so they can get on the phone and they can call a person easily and
we are
get some
definitely
answers.
looking at doing something like that for the entire IAF program, yes.
Great,
Yep.
okay. I think that's all my questions, thank you.
Councillor Bitter.
Thank you, Chair Emma. So consultation was done in October 2025, but on the 22nd of January this year, there was a tragedy in Mount Maunganui that was partly due to tree removal. Is there a need to reassess the risk of this project?
We have done extensive geotech investigations to make sure that we can meet the delivery milestones that have been set out. So we are assured by our geotech experts that the tree removals will not be sufficient and the geotechnical work will be sufficient.
Right. Are you able to provide the councillors with the geotech reports?
Yep. They are all on the council website under the designation.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Bitter. Deputy Mayor Taylor.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Look, I'm trying to stay within scope of what we're actually being asked for today, but I'm just mindful that we had a question about the relationship with the reservoir to the IAF growth. So I just wanted to follow that up with a question, if I may. Is it not fair to say that the reservoir is not just for central city housing, but serves a greater need for the city in terms of resilience and that sort of thing?
It will mainly feed the central city, but yes, it will provide additional resilience into that central city, yes.
And what is the situation for the city in terms of our resilience at the moment if the water treatment plant should fail?
I understand that we have about 2 days of water within our reservoir network, just over a day if it's a peak hot summer day.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you. I just had two quick questions. If we were to decline the decision today, you mentioned we wouldn't meet milestones, so that would jeopardise the 150 million of funding?
Yes.
Thank you. And also noting some members' concerns of population projections, would tomorrow's workshop be able to inform the timing of the second reservoir?
Completely, yeah. I think there will be a lot of workshops before that. That's how far out the second reservoir is. It's a big crystal ball we'll be looking into.
Yeah. But there's ability for elected members to have that input and inform that.
Yep.
Thank you. We have a move. Oh, sorry. We've got Councillor Rachel.
Just one final question, thank you. And it's around process robustness and defensibility. And from an assurance perspective, are you both satisfied that the statutory process has been fully met, that the key risks raised through submissions, particularly environmental and cultural impacts and alternative options, have been properly assessed and addressed? Yeah.
Yes, confident. So in terms of meeting the statutory requirements of the Reserves Act, we're confident that we have met those. And in terms of the designation under the Resource Management Act as well, that's that decision's been made, and there were no appeals to that decision as well. So we can be quite confident on both of those statutory processes that we've met those requirements.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I have moved, Councillor Bitter has second. I'll open it up for debate. Councillor Mead.
Thank you, Chair. Today is the last opportunity to ask questions and outcomes on the Rural Kiwi tanks, because once its designation is changed, the build begins. I have some outstanding questions about the growth data supplied and the projected current and accurate and in line with current build levels in this current environment, and them at the moment being way below projections. I also have concerns about the overall outside council management of this project being already in place for a number of months, and the overseeing the running of this project and the costs. I also have, given the history of geotech outcomes of costs that are comprehensive and fully accountable reports on the geotech engineer that go all the way to the lake are furnished, which I've had assurance today it looks like we've got, and they hold some accountability to the provider of the report. For those reasons, I oppose the change today, as we as elected councillors will bear the cost of outcomes. I wish we could pause it.
Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Chair. The decision framed today is a reclassification, but it's difficult for me to separate that from the commitment that this reclassification enables. It's not about relitigating past choices of reservoir planning. I recognise the need for resilience and redundancy of water supply. What I am noting is a process marker. Concerns raised about underlying growth assumptions that large spending decisions rely on in council were made late last year. They've been acknowledged in formal workshops since. So when decisions are required that legalise significant spends, we need to be confident that the foundational concerns have been addressed ahead of decisions required. I note there's a workshop tomorrow and that deals with such, but the decision is required today without any retesting information. The 2024 figures expected for housing were given as 5,000. As of today, there are 300. We've had changes in growth patterns, economic conditions, geopolitical environment, and a level of uncertainty that wasn't fully anticipated when this work was conceived. In this environment, the threshold needs to be higher, not lower. I note the risk around funding timelines. However, funding time pressure doesn't reduce the need for certainty. It actually increases it because there's less opportunity to correct course once we move. Given the size of the uncertainty that has emerged since the business case was put, I believe there is a case to pause and ensure the underlying assumptions and options are still fit for purpose before we commit further. For that reason, I will not support the motion today.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Taylor.
The reclassification, because that's what today is about. There's been questions about the relationship between the reservoir and the growth in with the IAF. And look, it's fair that we are going to get updated growth projections, but let's not forget that this first reservoir is actually needed now. It's needed to strengthen the resilience of the city's network, and we have been gifted $86 million to build the reservoir that we need now. We only have one water treatment plant. If that goes offline, we've got 2 days' water. We're not just talking about the IAF growth figures either. Plan Change 12 is about housing in the central city and the 800 metres walkable catchment. That is our first priority for growth. We've decided that as a council. This council is about supporting economic growth. If you don't have a reservoir, that is a significant barrier for economic growth. It's not just about housing, it's about Union Square with 20,000 square metres of office space. It's about 2 new hotels. Let's not repeat mistakes of the past in terms of not being ready for the growth that comes. We can't develop across a third of our city because we've made those mistakes of not looking forward in the past. This is grant money. This is $156 million that we did not have to borrow and then rate our ratepayers for. We tried to exchange our pedestrian bridge for bulk water tanks, $30 million worth. That took us a couple of years. 3 cabinet ministers we had to get it through and a cabinet decision, and we almost lost the whole thing. So if you wanted to say no to this now, you will be saying goodbye to $156 million. The government is not going to let you do it. They will take the money back gladly. I think that is a very, very big call to make, and I urge you to support the reservoir that we need today.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Mayor McIntyre.
Thank you, and I'm going to reiterate several of the Deputy Mayor's points. We've heard concerns from several concerned local ratepayers, including elected members, about our current growth projections. These are entirely reasonable, and we should test those projections regularly. But numbers aside, The reality is that Hamilton is growing steadily. As the Deputy Mayor has just noted, the first reservoir is critically needed now. The existing reservoir is ageing, already under capacity by around 2 million litres. The new 25 megalitre water reservoirs will strengthen the resilience of the entire city's network, ensuring reliable drinking water and firefighting capacity for our rapidly growing city, while also supporting Waikato Hospital and enabling much-needed housing infrastructure. It'll also support our Hamilton Urban Growth Strategy and Plan Change 12 in response to central government direction to enable Hamilton-appropriate increased housing intensification, growing up and not just out, to encourage people to live and work in the heart of our city. As the Deputy Mayor has noted, this is not ratepayer funding. Defaulting on part of the IAF agreement risks the entire package, as well as our relationship with central government, and means that we will fall behind on essential infrastructure. The Infrastructure Acceleration Fund is critical to delivery. It provides a $150.6 million non-repayable grant from central government to provide water and wastewater infrastructure, including $86 million for this reservoir and pump station. If we do not proceed, the funding would be lost, and we may need to return the $7 million that's been repaid to date, dispersed to date, plus contractually committed amounts. Losing the grant and having to repeat the reservoir consultation process in the future is not financially prudent, and it is unlikely that central government would support another reallocation. This is about staying ahead of risk. There's more I'd like to say, but I just urge councillors to think carefully and to support this motion.
Kia ora, thank you, Mayor McIndoe. Councillor O'Leary.
Thank you, Chair. I think what I would say to challenge elected members who are considering voting on this decision is that even if no more infill occurred in the central city, to stutter now on future-proofing the one critical life-saving service that we provide, that we're in charge for, to future-proof our city is simply wrong. Water is not optional. It's not. And yes, this piece of infrastructure was to support growth. But again, if no more infill occurred, it wouldn't matter and it shouldn't matter. This is government money. This is about future-proofing the city we already had. And these are the very decisions that I would often say are quite hard because we've got to weigh them up against other priorities, but we don't. We are being given a government grant. It's not a hard decision that forces us to weigh up priorities. The safety of our residents is a priority for our decision making. And we only need to look at recent events to tell us how critical our residents view water. The supermarkets were cleaned out of water bottles for a cyclone that didn't eventuate in terms of hitting our city. That's how important this decision is. And as a council, I've been here for a very long time, and I've made some decisions over that time that I think, maybe that wasn't the right decision. But let me tell you from experience of 19 years that when this organisation plans and future-proofs big infrastructure water projects, by golly, we do it well, and we do it very, very well. And this is the one thing where if something really serious happened, regardless of growth, regardless of infill, regardless of everything else that we need to provide, it's water. And having an extra water reservoir to me is a no-brainer.
Thank you, Councillor O'Leary and Councillor Rachel.
I agree with others that this specific decision does raise challenging questions about matters which are related, but actually don't fall squarely within the realm of the reclassification or not. And again, for some of us as newly elected members, we are in legacy territory. However, I do see other pathways or processes through which some obviously challenging tensions, for example, growth projections, can be escalated and the subject of challenge and adjustment if appropriate. I support the recommendation for several reasons. Firstly, this is an enabling step. It's not a new direction. It doesn't create a new project. It allows us to progress something that has already been decided and that we've committed to. Secondly, this is about consistency and credibility of council decision making, particularly with central government. Supporting the recommendation maintains the integrity of earlier decisions and avoids us sending an inconsistent message to central government about our commitment. It doesn't, however, limit our ability to test some foundational assumptions which can be brought forward to the appropriate body or introduced into our thinking for long-term plan purposes. Thirdly, cost and delivery risks sit with delay, not action. If we don't support it, the grant will be at risk, our resilience will be at risk. Fourthly, we've been assured by staff the process has been robust and transparent. Tick. Finally, a balanced outcome with mitigation is still available, but importantly, this decision doesn't remove our ability or EOI's ability to review assumptions and manage impacts moving forward if some of those earlier assumptions prove to have been too generous. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sarah.
Yeah. This reservoir is not just about growth. The current reservoir is not actually functioning properly. At that drop-in session, I asked Andrew Parsons, well, why aren't we continuing to use the old one? Why would that be decommissioned? And he explained, currently we actually only use part of its capacity because there are so many operational issues with it already and it's inefficient to run currently. It's ageing, and so even without growth, there is an issue with our current infrastructure. There's also the need for firefighting capacity, emergency supplies, as mentioned before, if our water treatment has issues or the delivery of water from the treatment plant has issues. We are seeing more and more extreme weather events, and we know an earthquake is a risk for Hamilton. These are things we should be thinking about. Delays will not only put the funding at risk, but also our reputation as a council at risk. If we turn around and delay this, that's going to reflect on our ability to deliver when we are given grant money. Growth projections are long-term. So I expect that if Greg was here today providing advice on growth projections, he would say, look, we are in the game of looking at growth projections over the long term. There are always troughs and peaks, that's the word, peaks and troughs in our housing market, in our economic cycles. There will always be disruptions, but we are looking out 10, 20 years, 30 years and further into the future. So even if it takes 10 or even 20 years longer to reach the population levels that we're expecting in the central city, what is the problem with that? Because this reservoir is being built to last many decades longer than that. I will just note that I am worried about the removal of these trees. It's going to look like someone knocked the two front teeth out. When you look at the view of the lake from the opposite side, we can't underestimate the visual impact of that and the response from community members when they see it happening. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Strange.
Thank you. I speak in support of the reclassification. It is important when government money is offered in the form of a grant that we don't just blindly take it, because there's often other costs for us associated with that and challenges. In this case, I believe that the grant is something that will be beneficial for the city. We've heard, I don't really need to repeat too many arguments, but we're talking about the first reservoir here. We're talking about 86 million. It's needed now, needed yesterday, really. So we need to move on and get that. It is a staged approach at the moment, and the second reservoir, is due to come later. There certainly is reputational risk if we delay this and we lose the money. Our relationship with central government is incredibly important, so it's important that we don't put that at jeopardy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moroney.
Thank you. I'm speaking in favour of the recommendation of the motion because I believe that I'm not compelled by the argument that we need to dot the I's and cross the T's on growth predictions. We know about growth. We know it's happening in our city. We don't need the precise figures to tell us what is happening in that space to understand that not having our water infrastructure in place will actually become a significant issue for our city. People have heard me say this before, and I'm going to say it again. We're in a position as a city to not have the transport and housing problems of Auckland and to not have the water problems of Wellington. And this is a critical part of making sure that we don't go down that pathway. Yes, there have been problems when government grants have come along that can be looked at as being free money to use. I don't subscribe to the view that because the government grants it to us, that's the right thing for us to spend. But in this instance, it is because it is a planned approach and it is a request that has come from our city to government that they have then made good on, and we should make sure that we make that work. Kia ora.
Councillor Robbie.
Tēnā koutou. Firstly, it's important that I indicate that I'm not against this project. I'm supportive of growth for our city and particularly future plans alongside our Iowai entity. That is not in dispute for me. What I am concerned about, particularly as a new councillor, is being often backed into a corner regarding decision making. I fully understand that this project has been going on for some time, but if we supposedly say no today, then the project is in jeopardy through no necessary fault of elected members, and yet we have been asked to make an essential decision today. It has become evident also that we are constantly being lobbied and told what our decision must be by my fellow councillors. No one today has mentioned the cultural impact. Well, I'm here to discuss that. Let me remind you all that I am one of 2 Māori ward councillors on this council, and I serve our hapu and iwi through. Therefore, my main concern is with the cultural report. I was born here, I grew up here. My father served as a community kaumātua and I whakapapa to mana whenua, and particularly Ngāti Wairere and Ngāti Mahanga. Whilst I have no problem with those who have provided the report, they are my whānau, and I support them daily with karakia throughout the city and the rohe. I know this whenua, and I fully understand its significance to our communities in Ahi Ka, particularly Ruakiwi. I've received feedback from Ngāti Wairere whānau in particular who have not been consulted appropriately during the cultural consultation process. The cultural report to me personally seems inadequate and looks stock standard, and we must be provided with more information. Information I know that some within our city hold. I requested a further report and hopefully this will be forthcoming. Unfortunately, that will be after today. Your report is extensive, alongside a couple of pages for a brief cultural report. Our histories are deep here, and we should understand better the location of the reservoirs at Ruakiwi before decisions are made, not post-hui, not post-decision making. I will not be supporting this motion, but I am confident that it will pass. And albeit, and public reputation aside, I will not forego my own cultural integrity. Toitu te whenua, toitu te tangata.
Kia ora. Councillor Bidder.
Thank you, Chair Emma. I support my colleagues who have justified concerns about this project, particularly due to the underlying economic assumptions that haven't matched actual growth. However, I don't see a good way out of the agreement with the government. This is frustrating because while it is government money, we are not just ratepayers, we are taxpayers. There is no such thing as free money. There are better ways to spend this money. $86 million would be 3,000 litre water tanks for half of Hamilton's houses. But without ministerial intervention that's beyond our control, innovation is not an option. The motion on the table is the designation. I will vote for the designation. I will rely on staff advice on the geotechnical issues, and I won't accept the risk if that goes wrong.
Thank you. Mangai Oli.
Thanks, Chair Emma. Relatively robust topic to come into, and approach this with an open mind, and thank you everyone for your points of debate. I will be supporting the motion based on the reclassification. I acknowledge all the points that have been raised, particularly Councillor Robbie, your point. I've reread the cultural impact assessments for an indication from Ngāti Wairere, specifically of any unhappiness with the consultation, and on the face of the report, except none was raised, but mitigations were provided for the development of the site. Particularly pertinent to me with the geopolitical situation that's happening at the moment, is a requirement for resilience as a country and resilience for a city. And I think it behoves us to build the resilience for the city. Water, obviously, being a fundamental service that council is responsible for providing at this stage. So we'll be voting in support of the motion.
Thank you. Lucky last. I want to start by grounding us in the decision in front of us today. Today is about the reserve reclassification under the Reserves Act, ensuring the legal status of the land reflects its intended use. I thank Deputy Mayor for your questions, and that from a civil defence and resilience perspective, this infrastructure is critical. The reservoir strengthens our ability to respond to emergencies, whether that's firefighting, and we heard the importance of that today, and sufficient storage capacity, maintaining supply during network disruptions, and supporting critical facilities like a hospital. This is fundamental core council business. As our city grows and the severity and frequency of emergencies arise, that resilience becomes even more important. We heard today not approving this jeopardises the $150.6 million grant, and at a time when our ratepayers are hurting, I believe it'd be poor governance to test that when we know there is clear and current needs for the first reservoir. At the same time, I want to reassure members this is not about removing future choice, and I have worked hard to add this flexibility in the motion in addition to the many opportunities for questions to be asked and drop-in sessions to be tested by members since February. Through the long-term plan, growth projections will be revisited by this new council. These assumptions will be crucial and affect almost everything council does. But with this is the opportunity to directly inform the timing of the second reservoir. So for me, this comes back to responsible governance, making a decision that enables us to meet current needs and contractual obligations while still allowing this council's input to shape what comes next. So I'm supporting the motion today. Thank you. I'll open it up for the vote. I'm moving and Councillor Bitter is seconding. All those in favour say aye. Against?
Can I keep those 2 hands raised? Perfect. 3 hands, thank you. So noting that the motion is carried with Councillor Mead, Councillor Niha and Councillor McDonald dissenting.
Thank you. Moving on to... Are we moving? Yes.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I think there may have been 1 or 2 councillors who expected that we would go to the board for that vote, and I understand that the outcome may have been different. I realise the vote has now been taken, but I just ask you to consider whether it perhaps should have gone to the board.
We can do it again on the board.
I'm not wanting to interfere, I'm just alerting you to the fact that it may have been a different outcome. Sorry, not a different outcome, may have been different numbers.
Just that apologies, as I have called the outcome, it wouldn't be appropriate for us to go through and vote again.
I don't think it would have affected the outcome, so it's not the end of the world.
If there was an error, could we...
I don't think all elected members voted. I think that seems to be the issue.
Can we go to the board?
Sure. And we don't have abstentions, so...
Yeah, okay. We'll retake that vote, noting some technical difficulties with our hands.
On the board.
Yeah.
The motion is carried 12 for, 4 against. 12 for. Thank you. Yeah. Yes, and then can we take a 20-minute lunch break?
Okay. We will move to public excluded, so I will move that. Councillor Huata second. All those in favour, say aye. Against?
Nobody else dissenting? No. The motion is carried, noting that Councillor Mead and Councillor MacDonald are dissenting.
Thank you.